Dear learners, welcome to this session. Today we will be discussing crimes involved in human trafficking. We have discussed that a person who has been trafficked is a victim and not an accused and should not be convicted at any point of time. We have also said that he or she is a person who is very vulnerable. So, I will discuss today the crimes related to a trafficked person. We have been saying that, a customer is not a person who can be a violator of law or who is exploiting somebody for his or her benefit. Anybody who is violating anybody's rights, it can be human rights, it can be fundamental rights, it can be rights given under different statutes. So, while discussing the legal framework and while discussing the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, then the conventions, we have understood that in case where you do trafficking, you are violating somebody's right, you are committing an offense. So, today in brief we will discuss some of the provisions of Indian Penal Code 1860 to understand what are the crimes involved in trafficking. I am just naming few of the crimes. One can be abduction, kidnapping, wrongful restraint, wrongful confinement, criminal intimidation, hurt, grievous hurt, sexual assault, stalking, causing miscarriage, etc., etc. And when I say etc., etc. means there are a lot of violations of labor laws, of different conventions, of different provisions under the Protection of Human Rights Act, of different articles of the Constitution of India. So, it is not that it is only a violation of Indian Penal Code or you are only attracting the provisions of Indian Penal Code, but we have been in a habit to listen so much of these sections in our daily life that we will be able to relate with these sections and understand that okay, if this happens then this term means this, and one should always go to the court of law if something like that happens with that person. So, section 107 talks about abetment of a thing. What is abetment? If you instigate a person to do something, so I am instigating a person, I am forcing a person, I am luring a person to do something which is an offense. Instigates any person to do that thing, engages him one or more other persons or persons in any conspiracy for doing of that thing. If any act or illegal omission takes place in pursuance of that conspiracy and in order to the doing of that thing, or intentionally aids or illegal omission the doing of that thing. So, either I am not doing my lawful duties, that is illegal omission. So, a person who by willful misrepresentation or willful concealment of a material fact which he is bound to disclose, voluntary causes or procures or attempts to cause or procure a thing to be done is said to instigate the doing of that thing. So, under this section one illustration has been given. This will explain you further. A, who is a public officer, is authorized by a warrant from the court of justice to apprehend Z. B, knowing that fact and also that C is not Z, willfully represents to A that C is Z. So, I know B, I am B and I know that C is not Z, but still I am saying yes, this person is Z, thereby intentionally causing A to apprehend C. Here B abets by instigation the apprehension of C. Section 119 talks about if a public servant conceals design to commit offence which is his duty to prevent, then whoever, being a public servant, intending to facilitate or knowing it to be likely that he will thereby facilitate the commission of an offence, in this case the offence is trafficking, which it is his duty as such public servant to prevent, voluntary conceals by any act or illegal omission or by the use of inscription or any other information hiding tool, the existence of a design to commit such offence or makes any representation which he knows to be false respecting such design. So, a public servant has been entrusted with certain duties. So, if he does not fulfill his duty, then he will be penalized as, a beat officer has a duty to prevent crime in his area. So, if the beat officer works in coordination with the different stakeholders, he will be able to get the information of crime being happening. He will also know in advance by the help of community policing that certain people are habitual offenders or certain people are not taking due care of the laws and provisions of the country. So, he can have a check on them or surveillance on them so that the crime can be prevented in his area. Similarly, if there is any brothel which is functioning, any massage parlor, any placement agency which is functioning in his area, and proper procedure is not followed in that placement agency by the people who can be informers in the area, he can get the details of these illegal activities. Even in sex trade, in drugs, in beggary, a beat officer can play a very important role. Similarly, if you are a very committed worker, you will be able to understand in your village different kinds of vulnerabilities, and if with the help of stakeholders you are able to provide these people the means of sustenance and a life with dignity and worth, then you will be contributing your role in the society. So, a public servant is duty bound to do his duties. So, he cannot say that I will do certain act which is punishable or I will not do certain acts. So, commission and omission both are there. Absconding to avoid service of summons or other proceedings. This is given in section 172 of Indian Penal Code. Whoever absconds in order to avoid being served with the summons, notice or order proceeding from any public servant legally competent as such public servant to issue such summons, notice or order shall be punishable with simple imprisonment for a term which may extend to 1 month or with fine which may extend to 500 rupees or with both, or if the summons or notice or order is to attend in person or by agent, or to produce a document or an electronic record in a court of justice with simple imprisonment for a term which may extend to 6 months or with fine which may extend to 1000 rupees or with both. Very important provision, you cannot just do not appear in the court of law after receiving summons. You cannot say no, that I will not receive the summons. So, you cannot abscond, you cannot hide yourself so as to prevent yourself from receiving the summon. Section 190 talks about threat of injury to induce person to refrain from applying for protection to public servant. So, whoever holds out any threat of injury to any person for the purpose of inducing that person to refrain or desist from making a legal application for protection against any injury to any public servant legally empowered as such to give such protection or to cause such protection to be given shall be punished with imprisonment of either description for a term which may extend to 1 year or with fine or with both. A very important provision, if you are confined, your movement is restricted, you are not able to move for help, then this section will be applicable. Giving false evidence is covered under section 191. Whoever being legally bound by any oath or by an express provision of the law to state the truth or being bound by law to make a declaration upon any subject makes any statement which is false and which he either knows or believes to be false or does not believe to be true is said to give false evidence. A very important provision. You cannot just stand before the court of law or before any authority and give wrong statements or evidences. Section 312 talks about causing miscarriage. Whoever voluntarily causes a woman with child to miscarry shall, if such miscarriage be not caused in good faith for the purpose of saving the life of the woman, be punished with imprisonment of either description for a term which may extend to 3 years or with fine or with both, and if the woman be quick with child, shall be punished with imprisonment of either description for a term which may extend to 7 years and shall also be liable to fine. A woman who causes herself to miscarry is within the meaning of this section. So, the best interest of the child is taken into consideration. So, if a trafficker forces a lady to miscarry, then he will be punished under this section. Even out of circumstances, if somebody tries to kill the child, then that person will be punished. In this, there is a very thin line of, out of the incidences where rape happens, out of the incidences where, your modesty, your safety, your reputation, your dignity is compromised every day by the trafficker and the so-called customers, then the court gives an option to the lady to decide whether to keep that child or not, because in trafficking you do not do something with your consent. Everything is forced upon you. So, if you conceive and you do not want to give birth to that child, then there is a law. Similarly, if a trafficker forces you to abort your child, then he will be punished under section 312 of Indian Penal Code. Section 317 talks about causing miscarriage without woman's consent. Whoever commits the offence defined in the last preceding section, that is 312, without the consent of the woman, whether the woman is quick with the child or not, shall be punished with imprisonment for life or with imprisonment for either description for a term which may extend to 10 years and shall also be liable to fine. So, without consent, this section will be there. So we have to understand that trafficking is an offense. All people who have been forced into sex trade are humiliated, are tortured every day, every second, and conceiving is very normal for a lady who has this kind of environment where she has been brutally raped every day by so many people. So if the lady has not given the consent for miscarriage, and trafficker, the brothel owners, the madam tries to give her some sedative or some medicine so that the baby dies in the womb, then this section will be attracted. Section 315 talks about act done with the intent to prevent child being born alive or to cause it to die after birth. Whoever before the birth of any child does any act with the intention of thereby preventing that child from being born alive or causing it to die after its birth, and does by such act prevent that child from being born alive or causes it to die after its birth, shall, if such act be not caused in good faith for the purpose of saving the life of the mother, be punished with imprisonment of either description for a term which may extend to 10 years, or with fine, or with both. Somebody who has been exploited every day, every hour by so many people, and then because you think that lady to be a money making machine, so you do not want that if she is pregnant then she should deliver the baby, or after the delivery of the baby you just want to kill that child so that your business does not get affected, then this section will be attracted. Section 316 talks about causing death of quick unborn child by act amounting to culpable homicide. Whoever does any act under such circumstances that if he thereby caused death, he would be guilty of culpable homicide, and does by such act cause the death of a quick unborn child, shall be punished with imprisonment for either description for a term which may extend to 10 years, and shall also be liable to fine. Section 317 talks about exposure and abandonment of child under 12 years by parents or person having care of it. So children are very vulnerable. So if you abandon that child, then this section will be attracted. Even under the Juvenile Justice Act we have provisions. Whoever being the father or mother of a child under the age of 12 years or having the care of such child shall expose or leave such child in any place with the intention of wholly abandoning such child, shall be punished with imprisonment of either description for a term which may extend to 7 years, or with fine, or with both. But if you send your children for work thinking that they will also work and earn and will study, will have a better future, a better life, then you are not violating this section, because you are not abandoning your child, you are not denouncing your child, but in the best interest of the child you are sending that child for work with some other person. So you are doing something in good faith. So if you act in good faith and you send your child to work because you are not able to sustain that child, you are not able to provide 3 times meal to that child, then this section will not be applicable. And there are so many provisions which talk about these children who are in need of care and protection. So it is that we have to know about the government programs and schemes for the all round development of children. If as a parent I am not able to sustain and look after my child, then there is a Juvenile Justice Care and Protection Act. Under that act, we have two types of children, and the one which falls under this is children in need of care and protection. So if you have a child who needs care and protection, then we have entire mechanism and a framework for that child. But I will just say that parents are the safest, or the family is the safest place for a child to be in. So do keep your children with yourself till you are safe. We cannot trust others, we have to take the responsibility of children as parents. Section 319 talks about hurt. Whoever causes bodily pain, disease or infirmity to any person is said to cause hurt. Grievous hurt is defined in section 320 of Indian Penal Code, and it talks about the following kinds of hurt as grievous hurt: emasculation, permanent privation of the sight of either eye, permanent privation of the hearing of either ear, privation of any member or joint, destruction or permanent impairing of the powers of any member or joint, permanent disfiguration of the head or face, fracture or dislocation of a bone or tooth, any hurt which endangers life or which causes the sufferer to be during the space of 20 days in severe bodily pain or unable to follow his ordinary pursuits. So this is very important in cases of trafficking for beggary, trafficking for organ transplantation. We find that this section has been violated. Section 321 talks about voluntary causing hurt. Whoever does any act with the intention of thereby causing hurt to any person, or with the knowledge that he is likely thereby to cause hurt to any person, and thus thereby cause hurt to any person, is said voluntary to cause hurt. 322 talks about voluntary causing grievous hurt. Whoever voluntarily causes hurt, if the hurt which he intends to cause or knows himself to be likely to cause is grievous hurt, and if the hurt which he causes is grievous hurt, is said to voluntary to cause grievous hurt. And the explanation is, a person is not said voluntary to cause hurt by dangerous weapons or means. So, it is very important that we understand the sections and think, keeping in view the framework of a person who has been trafficked, a person who is a victim of human trafficking or a survivor of human trafficking. 326 talks about voluntary causing grievous hurt by dangerous weapons or means. Whoever, except in the case provided for the section 335, voluntary causes grievous hurt by means of any instrument for shooting, stabbing or cutting, or any instrument which used as a weapon of offense is likely to cause death, or by means of fire or any heated substance, or by means of any poison or any corrosive substance, or by means of any explosive substance, or by means of any substance which it is deleterious to the human body to inhale, to swallow, or to receive into the blood, or by means of any animal, shall be punished with imprisonment for life, or with imprisonment of either description for a term which may extend to 10 years, and shall also be liable to fine. Section 326A talks about voluntary causing grievous hurt by use of acid. We have seen lot of acid victims. You know, acid is also there in cases where you refuse a trafficker. In cases where you are forced to commit illegal offences, you are forced to do beggary, or as a labor, bonded labor, you are forced to work, or in hazardous employment you are forced to work and then you say no, then there are cases where the traffickers have put acid on that person. Whoever causes permanent or partial damage or deformity to, or burns or maims or disfigures or disables any part or parts of the body of a person, or causes grievous hurt by throwing acid on or by administering acid to that person, or by using any other means with the intention of causing, or with the knowledge that he is likely to cause such injury or hurt, shall be punished with imprisonment of either description for a term, which shall not be less than 10 years, but which may extend to imprisonment for life and with fine, provided that such fine shall be just and reasonable to meet the medical expenses of the treatment of the victim, provided further that any fine imposed under this section shall be paid to the victim. A very important provision, because in acid attacks sometimes you have multiple injury and you have to go, or you have to undergo so many operations. So, it is very difficult for the victim and his family members to go for these treatments without any support from the government. In the end, we will be discussing the other parts in the next session, but in the end I will just like to say that a trafficker is not a customer. A trafficker is a violator of law, somebody who has exploited you, somebody who has exploited somebody, if not you, somebody who has violated the provisions of different statutes, different conventions, articles, and the Constitution of India, the human rights doctrine, and who is not a human being. Because when we interact with the victims or survivors of human trafficking, we find that inhumane treatment has been done with these people. When you are doing a crime without thinking about the dignity of that person, without thinking about the harm which you are causing to that person, without sensitivity, if you are just wanting to earn profit out of somebody's vulnerability and you are trying to harm him and give him so much of pain and suffering, then you are nowhere customer. And a person who has suffered so much in his life, or in few years, cannot be an accused and should never be convicted by any court of law. That person should be protected by the court of law, should be rehabilitated by the court of law and reintegrated in the society, so that he also leads a dignified life, or she also leads a dignified life, because we all are Indian citizens, and Indian citizens have been ensured fundamental rights under the Constitution of India, have been ensured the human rights under the Protection of Human Rights Act, and different conventions, covenants, and different statutes of the country. Thank you for listening to this session. Have a nice day and stay safe.